Hello, my name is Annie Phillips. I'm a librarian with the Huntsville-Madison County Public Library. One question that can sometimes strike fear into the heart of a librarian, just because it's overwhelming, is what should I read next? And it's nice to be seen as sort of the end-all be-all of book recommendations, but there's so many, and sometimes when you're not thinking in the moment, you go, well, gosh, I don't know. So I've got a few just of my personal ones, and I tried to think about, what are you in the mood to read? I mean, sometimes you want something epic that you can get lost in that's long. Sometimes you want something kind of fluffy or just, takes your mind off reality. And sometimes you want reality and you want to find, get some deeper thinking about history or current events. So I've got kind of a smattering of all things, and then of course you can always contact me because I guarantee I have plenty more where all those came from. So first of all, when I have someone come up to me and ask, I do like to ask them, well, what are you in the mood for? If you want something, that you can get lost in, some of my go-tos are first of all, The Stand by Stephen King. I've always said that's one of my desert island books. Now it's very long, but it's just an amazing story, and it can hit a little too close to home, especially right now, because it is about a horrible pandemic that hits the United States, and pretty much the entire population is wiped out, but there are a few people left. And it's really fascinating because Stephen King goes through all these different characters, viewpoints, and how they're dealing with this. And it turns into kind of this epic good versus evil battle. There's some people who get these sort of telepathic, these dreams, being called to a place in Nebraska to a very old lady named Mother Abigail. And she is sort of the leader of the light and the good. And then there are people who are pulled towards Las Vegas to the dark man or the walking man. He's kind of the stand-in for the devil, I guess. And but it's just an amazing read. And so if you're in for like kind of a good long story, I always like to recommend The Stand. Another kind of epic book, and you really want to buckle in because this has like 5, we're waiting on 6 and 7 now, but Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire series, very sort of medieval, with alternate medieval world. I think most of us kind of know just from the TV show what it's about, but just a lot of swords, sorcery, again, very interesting characters, and it's another one where it switches between points of view, so if you like that kind of thing, definitely recommend that. A few others, if you don't want quite so long, but just still a really good story. I'm going to recommend Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, and she has Huntsville roots. This is an absolutely beautiful, heartbreaking story. It tells the story of 2 sisters, and it starts out in the slave trading days in Ghana, and it's very it's a hard read, but it's a really good story. The sisters get separated. One stays in Ghana and one is taken to the United States, and then it follows their families as the centuries go by up until modern day. Just an amazing book. And a beautiful story, and she's just an incredible writer. So that's one fairly newer book that I like to recommend. It's a great story. If you like kind of sort of literary mystery, one of my favorites, again, a really long one, is Possession by A.S. Byatt. It came out sometime in the 90s, and it's become kind of a modern classic, and it also goes kind of back and forth in time. It's a pair of researchers, and they find these lost letters of this poet, and just this very, if you kind of just like this super detailed, really digging deep, it's just a fascinating story. There's romance, there's history, it's hard to describe it fully, but it's a wonderful book, and she is an absolutely beautiful writer. And you just learn so much because she's so knowledgeable about all these areas of history and literature, and I, could go and read it 10 times and learn new things every time. So really recommend that. Another desert island, so I'm up to 2 now, is Ray Bradbury's short stories. He is just a magical writer. He's mostly, known as science fiction and Fahrenheit 451 and all that, but his stories go beyond sci-fi. Of course, there's some amazing ones, the Martian Chronicles, but he also writes stories that I think are based on his boyhood that have their own sort of gentle everyday magic, at the turn of the 20th century and in Illinois where he grew up. And there's one that's my favorite where a gentleman, he's been married a long time and he yearns for his young days, and he goes up in the attic and somehow is transported back to like 1901, and he's riding a bicycle and it's summer, and he escapes up there forever. And so I just really, if you just want to kind of discover a classic that's something new to you, definitely go with Ray Bradbury. So if you're not into, or you're not feeling, anything too brain taxing, there's always kind of lighter but still just really fun reads. One is James Patterson. I love, it's his second book in the Alex Cross series, Kiss the Girls. It's, involves 2 serial killers, and Alex Cross, the Washington, D.C. detective, has to go to North Carolina to figure out what's going on when his own niece gets kidnapped. Just a kind of a good, easy read, but very absorbing and interesting. And James Patterson, of course, is extremely popular. So if you just want something kind of a fun thriller, that's a great one. Another one I like to recommend is the Lincoln Lawyer. It's part of the Michael Connelly's series, and he is he's an attorney in LA, and he connects business from his Lincoln Town Car. They made a movie with Matthew McConaughey, and each book follows a different event that happens, but it's just another fun, easy, absorbing read. Another fun read that I really enjoy and I love to go back to is Something Borrowed by Emily Giffin, and also made a movie out of that. But it's a woman who, she and her best friend live in New York City, and her best friend's about to get married and kind of has the perfect, has kind of made something of herself. And she, one sort of misbegotten night, actually has an affair with her friend's fiance, and it turns out they fall in love, and they have to figure out, with the wedding a month away, what's going to happen. But it's set in New York City, like right around 1999, 2000, and it's just another fun kind of romance, easy read. So getting into nonfiction, if you're feeling some interesting real life stuff. I adore the Astronaut Wives Club. This is about the 7 wives who were married to our first astronauts, including Annie Glenn and Louise Shepard. Their stories are really well told here, and you just get a really good idea of how important these women were to helping the whole space race come about, because they supported their husbands, and many of them in their own right. One of them was a pilot herself, and they had to sublimate a lot of their dreams and aspirations. And with the Life magazine photos and the visits to the White House, put on this sort of perfect facade, but just like anybody with their own dreams and heartaches, and how they dealt with that. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book, and you will tear through it. For something funny, nonfiction, I love Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris, and he's written so many essays now, but this one, I would recommend you want to listen to it because he reads it, and his delivery, reading his stuff, is just I listened to it while I was driving on I-20 in Atlanta. I would not recommend that because I almost ran off the road. I was laughing so hard. So this is his adventures in France, learning how to speak French. A lot of, I would say, misadventures actually, but so funny. He has his sister is Amy Sedaris, who you've seen probably in a lot of TV shows, and she's actually in The Mandalorian right now. And he has a younger brother named, he calls the Rooster, who's like a total redneck. It's just, his family's crazy and it's wonderful, and he's one of the funniest people I've ever heard. Another nonfiction, getting definitely more serious, but so just important to read, and is a really good read, is Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson, also recently made into a movie. And this tells the story of Bryan Stevenson is the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. He has worked tirelessly for people on death row, and this case he highlights here is Walter McMillian, who from Alabama was framed, wrongfully accused, spent 6 years on death row for a crime that he was miles away from when it happened. It will shake you in the very best way possible, and you will just not see things the same way after you've read it. And but it's so absorbing, and you just feel like you know these people. So that's just another one I highly recommend to pick up. And finally, a couple that I don't have in my hands just because they're so popular. Sort of another fantasy trilogy that you can get lost in, A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Time traveling, magic, witches, vampires, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful set of books you can get lost in. And I would put that on your list for this year too. So I think I have covered quite a range here, but please get in touch with me or any other librarian at the Huntsville Public Library, and we will get you hooked up with just about anything you want to read. Thank you so much.